working from this exact time. The last piece of information you need from your emergency action message is the code for this butterfly valve lock control here. Our commander is going to read the correct code to the missile analyst technician who will input it here. There's 6 wheels here. Each of these wheels has 16 letters on it. You can't mess around with this because if you put in the wrong code 6 times in a row, the 7th time you try to do something, this will freeze up and you will not be able to do your launch. You're also not going to decide, okay, let's just do it and try to tamper with this, because when you tamper with this, there's an explosive charge inside that will detonate, that will cause these wheels to melt, and you will not be able to do your launch. Finally, you're not going to be able to guess this, because if you remember your math, we got 6 to the 16th power. That's a 1 in nearly 17 million chance that you would guess correctly. Now, you need to have the right code in here to do your launch. And what is the significance of the butterfly locks? Let me tell you. This has to do with the advancement of the Titan II missile above the Titan I and the Atlas. All 3 of those missile systems used liquid propellants. But the Atlas and Titan I needed liquid oxygen as an oxidizer. Now, liquid oxygen, as you know, it's an air at room temperature. It has to be kept below 290 degrees Fahrenheit. Because at 290 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 290 degrees Fahrenheit, it boils away. So it's got to be kept very cold and under a lot of pressure. And that means when you want to launch your missile, you have to fuel it up, and you have to take it out of its silo. And doing those things costs you 30 minutes. Now remember, we don't want to take that amount of time. We've got less than 30 minutes. We've already had to do a bunch of communications and decoding. We want to get the missile out of there. Well, rocket science came to the rescue. They figured out a fuel and an oxidizer that won't degrade. They can be stored at 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Remember, I mentioned that's one of the duties of the missile analyst, or the missile facilities technician. So that means our fuel and oxidizer are sitting on the missile, ready to go. They don't have to be loaded on at time of launch. It also means our missile is going to take off from inside the silo. That cuts our launch time from 30 minutes to 58 seconds. That's all the time we need. Once we know. And the butterfly valves are there to prevent that fuel and oxidizer from coming into the engine until we're ready. Because the instant they come together, they start a fire. They don't even need a spark. So there are butterfly valves on the engine, and they're held closed with a locking pin. Until we put the correct code here, you won't be able to do anything. But once the correct code is in place and you've turned the key to start your launch, this pin will retract and our valves can open. And that's when we can do our launch. So let's go through that sequence. This is where you put your key in. And once you put the key in and turn it, you can't change your mind. The computer takes over. Our butterfly valves open up. We have 2 empty batteries that will charge the rocket, but they can't do anything until they're filled. So when the key turns, they start filling up with electrolytes. Those electrolytes fill up and the batteries charge in a mere 28 seconds. Once those batteries are charged, 9,000 gallons of water pour into the bottom of the silo. The reason for that water gets back to that technology I mentioned. Because our rocket can take off from inside the silo, it's going to fire up with the force of 2 747 jets. That's going to create a lot of sound, and those sound waves create vibrations that would shake the missile apart inside the silo, and we don't want that to happen. Rocket science helped us out again. They figured out if you put water in the bottom of the silo below the missile, when the engines fire up, that water is going to turn to steam. And the action of producing steam dampens the sound. So when you see the videos of the missile taking off, it's steam coming out the sides of the silo, protecting that rocket. How about that? So with our water in place, we're still not quite ready to take off. You remember that silo cover I pointed to on our way down? That silo cover weighs 760 tons, and it flies open in a mere 19 seconds. And when it does, they'll get an alarm in here because it's surrounded by radar that detects any motion. I'm told from guys who worked in here, birds and animals would periodically set off that alarm, giving everybody a little heart attack. All right, with our silo door open, we need to have communication one last time with our guidance system, and then our fuel and oxidizer come together, and that's when the engines fire up, and within an instant, they are taking off. Are you ready to do the simulation? A mere 58 seconds. So your left hands are going to go on the keys. You're going to count down because you're the commander, so it can be just 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
And then you will turn your keys to the right simultaneously. Your key is here. Yeah, you might have to stand. It's a little tricky. Yeah, oh, there you got it. Okay, so you're going to turn to the right simultaneously. 1/4 turn and hold for 5 seconds, and you can let go. So count down when you're ready.
3, 2, 1.
There you go.
1, 2,
3, 4,
5.
Okay, and let it go. Now, read to me, starting with this green light, you're going to read that top row.
Launch enable.
Launch enable,
Batteries activated.
and batteries activated. That means our launch sequence has begun. The computer's taking over the process. Butterfly valves have opened. The empty batteries are getting filled up with electrolytes, charging up in a mere 28 seconds. Do we have a new light? No, this is where we wait into anticipation. It feels like forever. What do we have?
APS power.
That means the batteries are fully charged. 9,000 gallons. What do we have here? What's that like?
Silo saw.
That's the radar going off because our silo door is open. Meanwhile, 9,000 gallons of water pouring into the bottom of the silo. What do we have next?
Guidance go.
That's our guidance system. One last communication. And then we what's that? And
Lift off.
that's it. It's gone. It's out of here. 58 seconds.
You don't get to hit the red button?
You turn, you can hit the red button. You go, sir, you go ahead. You give it. There you go. Because it's so satisfying, right? Good thing we never had to do it, but that was the sequence they'd get tested on. They'd be checked to see if there were errors, and they'd have to go through everything. Let's now go look at the missile itself. It's all the way down the cableway. On the way there, you'll see some suits hanging. They look like spacesuits. There's even a helmet. Those are suits that anybody who was working on the fuel and oxidizer would wear. It's fatal to breathe or touch. So the suits look camouflaged, but they're patched because they fill up with air. If there's a little scrape, they'll patch it up to make sure the person inside is safe. They do a better job than I do with my bike tires, that's for sure. All right, let's go ahead and you can precede me all the way down the cableway. There's 3 windows you can use to look at this one.
Hypergolic propellants.
What's that?
Hypergolics will burn the shit out of your skin. Yeah. The Germans learned that the hard way. Dude, I'm so paranoid I'm gonna hit my head on something. Oh, yeah, there it is. It's a beast.
Oh, it is a pretty good view here.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. See how far down it goes right there.
Alrighty, we're on Those two were about 35 feet under the ground right here. Now that 150 feet accommodates a missile that is 103 feet tall and 10 feet in diameter. It's the largest ICBM ever deployed by the United States. We haven't gone bigger because we've gone more accurate. We have more accurate missile systems now, then that means they don't need to be as large, so they've shrunk down missiles to accommodate that accuracy. You'll see on the side panels, there are panels filled with spark particles. Those also help dampen the sound. And the platforms you see are used only when they're doing work with the missile, otherwise they are retracted. Now you remember I mentioned that this missile will take off with the force of 2 747 jets. When it takes off, it flies up to 6,300 miles. And it gets to its destination in about a half an hour, which means it is flying at 20 times the speed of sound. The most mind-blowing thing about all that to me is the fact that it's only powered for the first 5.5 minutes of its flight. Stage 1 takes about 2.5 minutes and takes the missile about 40 miles up into the air. Stage 2 lasts about 3 minutes, takes the missile about another 200 miles in the air, and the rest of that 6,300 miles it is flying on ballistics alone. And all the metal you see drops off as those stages are complete, leaving the black re-entry vehicle at the top. It goes out of the atmosphere. The black re-entry vehicle comes back into the atmosphere, and as it does so, it burns up, leaving the warhead. Yeah, all the fun noises they're doing their work in the elevator there. So yeah, all we have left at the end is the warhead. Now the fact that this could exit the atmosphere means that the Titan IIs were also used in our space program, which I think is pretty nifty. So that Neil Armstrong rode one when he was on the Gemini missions. Instead of a black re-entry vehicle that burns away, he was in a space capsule because we did not want him burning away. And we used 2 of the Viking 2s for our Voyager missions, or Viking missions to Mars. And we used one for the Voyager mission, which is still sending data back to us from outside of the solar system. So that's pretty neat.